Welcome to Between Two Asses. My name is Robyn, and I'm a therapist here in Houston, and I have 2 Sicilian donkeys. And so those are actually the asses involved here. It won't be me or my guest, although sometimes it might be me and my guest. We'll just have to wait and see. But today I feel certain it will not be me and the guest. My guest today is Sabrina Napier. She is from Houston Achievement Place, and she's going to talk to us about children learning appropriate social skills, Project Class. Welcome to the podcast, Sabrina.
Thank you, Robyn, and thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Sabrina, tell us a little bit about Houston Achievement Place, first of all.
Well, I certainly will be happy to do that. So many years ago, when I was a student trying to get my psychology degree from the University of Houston, and I was looking for a job because I was almost done, I go to the job board and I saw a sign and it says, "Help Orphan Kids." And I was like, wow, that sounds interesting. So I was introduced to Houston Achievement Place. I've been working with HAP for about 35 years. I started working at an emergency shelter, helping orphan kids, and I transitioned to foster care, had a lot of different positions there, and currently I work for Project Class. I go into schools. I help students work on their social skills. I encourage teachers to help students work on their social skills. Also, maybe encourage them to use their social skills with their students a little bit. And it's worked out great for me.
Okay, now, wow, go back. Tell me, what is an emergency shelter?
An emergency shelter is a place where kids go when they cannot stay in their homes anymore and they need a place immediately. Like, they are removed from their homes, they are driven to this place, and they are there until the court decides what's going to happen to them.
Okay, so they're in children's protective services.
Yes, children's protective services, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so what type of children would come there in terms of what kind of issues did you notice, and who? You weren't there by yourself, I guess, taking care of the kids.
No. The kids would come to the shelter because they could no longer stay in their homes. The homes were unsafe. Maybe they had been abused in any number of ways, physically, sexually. Maybe they had housing insecurity. Their homes may have not been suitable. They may have been abandoned by their parents. They just did not have a place to go, and they needed a place. And so they ended up in the emergency shelter.
Once they were there, now, were the children generally happy to be there?
Oh, no. No. Actually, let me tell you, they did not present as happy to be there, because that is something that's very frightening for children. Actually, at some point, maybe if they adjusted to the situation and they had a warm place to stay, food to eat, people who were treating them in like with decency, I would say, then it was an okay place for them to be. Now, of course, they longed for their families and their communities, what they knew, but there's something to be said about stability and safety.
Now, did they go to school as well at the emergency shelter, or did they go to school within the community surrounding that?
Well, at the shelter, there was a school on campus. And so they did not go to public schools because it was temporary. And so immediately they went to the school on campus. And it was K through 12th grade, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Now, what so you were just coming out of college.
Yes, just finishing college, actually. I was still in college, taking classes and working at this place. It was eye-opening. It was eye-opening.
Tell us about that. That must have been quite an introduction to the world of psychology.
Yes, it was. And I say working in that shelter, I worked with all personality types. I learned to handle like a lot of different issues, crisis, emotional. I learned a lot. I mean, it was a very good training ground. And I have this joke that I say nobody in my life had ever called me a bitch before I started working in the shelter. And these were kids who, like, okay, I never experienced that before. So it gave me a thick skin.
For sure.
Which I appreciate. Yeah.
And so then you moved into foster care, working with foster children.
And their families, yes. And foster families and their biological families, yes. That is what I did.
Okay, so the child would still then be in child protective custody.
Yes.
So having visits maybe with their biological families, but living within the safety of a foster family.
Yes.
And what was your job? Like, what did you do to help them navigate all that?
Oh, well, I had several jobs in Houston Achievement Place therapeutic foster care, but I like to concentrate, well, actually two. Case management I enjoyed because as a case manager, my job was to help the children in foster care maintain their placement. It was to help the foster parents navigate, working with children with emotional issues, who had a lack of social skills, and just trying to help them say, hey, do this, this would help. Don't do that. That's not going to help. And, also just helping the kids adjust to being outside of their, families, away from their families, outside of their communities.
So clearly, yes, if the child is functioning in the emergency shelter and then in a foster home, and they're having these massive outbursts or massive meltdowns or just emotional problems and calling adults bitches and all of the rest of it, you have to know that they have really been through some suffering in their life.
Yes, right? Absolutely.
Houston Achievement Place seemed to really come up with some wonderful ideas for how to help those children function better, but also the foster families to parent those kids better. Because this is just like normal parenting, this is 24 hours a day, 360 days a year. And these children have a lot of emotional instability and disability.
And let me ask you something. You said 360. So where are those other 5 days?
Oh, sorry.
I want to know myself, who are the parents who are getting 360 days? Because I want my days back.
Good point. Thank you for that. 365. Parenting is 24/7, 365 days a year. And even when you have, quote, healthy, loving, appreciative children, that is still a very difficult job. And in my opinion, one of the most important jobs on the planet. Because the children are the future of our planet. Children are the future of all of our resource management, and we need to invest as much time and energy as we need to make sure that they're healthy and they're loving and they're contributing members of society. So to me, good parenting is one of the most important tools that we can ever have in our tool belt. What I love about Houston Achievement Place and Project Class in particular is the focus on social skills training, because as a therapist, I see, a social skills deficit just grows up and becomes a different social problem, right? So in the classroom, it might look like this, but in a traffic jam, it might look like that. So tell us about social skills training. Tell us about, if you can, please tell us about the foster family model too, the teaching family model, the ways in which you sort of cut your teeth too, really, like you said, bringing these ideas, these concepts into very volatile families, trying their best, the kids and the foster parents. Tell us what that was like for you, and just, how helpful it was to bring those things into those homes.
Well, social skills, like addressing social skills deficits, it has made the biggest difference, like understanding that. It has made the biggest difference in my life, in my own parenting, in my own relationships. And when we really think about it, everything can be broken down to a social skill. What you do or what you don't do, your success or your lack of success, right? And honestly, I feel like I am fortunate enough that I really understand that. I see it. And so when I was introduced to all the social skills training with Houston Achievement Place, it clicked with me. Like I was a believer, right? And from day one, and I'm still a believer. So in the foster homes, when these foster parents were parenting children who were not born to them, who were basically strangers, I found that the most successful foster parents stuck to the model. They stuck to, this is what you're not doing. This is what you should do. It's not about your character. It's not about your personality. It is about this thing, right? And we can get to some other stuff, but we have to address these deficits first. It's not personal. It's just what you need to do. And the ones who were most successful, they did that. In the schools right now, I loved the thought of working with kids in their own families of origins, right? I was really excited about that because I thought, oh, wow, these kids, they have a leg up on the kids who have been removed from their homes because of all the reasons that we talked about. But what's so funny is that the kids that I see in the schools, they have the same sometimes issues at home, like not maybe to the degree that the kids who have been removed from their homes, but they have not learned. Their parents have not maybe taken the time to say, hey, Sally, if you don't get what you want, this is what you're supposed to do. I can tell you no, Sally, and this is what you're supposed. They have not taken that time. So then they bring it to school and it causes a problem for them in the classroom. It causes a problem for the other students. It causes a problem for the teacher. And then again, it causes a problem for their biological parents. So I don't know. I just think that everything, if we could address this social skill issue, we would, we'd be cooking with gas.
It's really true. I mean, I see such a bridge. There is such a bridge from poor social skills training, not being addressed, not being parented, really. Whether the parent turns out to be a biological parent teaching the child, hey, I noticed how you handled your friend when they were over here today. I saw their face get sad. I think you might have really hurt their feelings. Okay, let's think about how you could have done that differently. And just sitting, like you said, very neutral, just sitting down with them. I love you. I think you're wonderful and amazing. And I think we can tune that up a little bit where it would come across a lot better. You would get what you want and they would get what they want, right? But those deficits, of course, just grow up if we never address them.
That's right.
And the good news about social skills is they are a skill, which means we can learn them.
Yes. We can say it together. They can be learned. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell us, if you can, please, what are the core social skills according to Project Class?
According to Project Class, the core social skills are paying attention, following instructions, asking permission, accepting no, accepting feedback, and knowing how to calm down. And also just taking a pause from a situation when it's not going as you would want it to go, or it's not going how you thought it would go. Like, just take a pause, right? Those are all basic, vital social skills. Now, we have some other social skills that we teach in the school. We teach students how to get their teacher's attention the right way. We teach them how to maintain eye contact. We teach them how to make good decisions, make good choices. Those are other social skills that, as they move along the spectrum of improving their social skills. But the ones that I talked about are
But see, and I can see all of those social skills, and the two that I recall when I work with children, the two that are the most difficult, which are the most difficult for all of us, are accepting no and accepting feedback.
Yes. Yes. And I'm glad you put that for all of us in there, because it is difficult for all of us. It is those two, accepting no and accepting feedback. It's something that we have to work on and practice forever. Because accepting no, I always say, if I ask for something, it's because I want it. And if I don't get it, I'm going to feel some kind of way about it, because I wouldn't ask for it if I didn't want it. And feedback, we love good feedback. If somebody's saying, oh, you're doing this great, you are a model, we love it. We love that feedback. But when somebody tells us what we need to do to make something better, we tend to get defensive. We tend to focus on something other than, we maybe focus on the delivery. We maybe focus on what I did right. Why aren't they, whatever we do, we just don't listen to the words and try to make it better. That is something that is hard. So yeah, I think those are good places I think they're good places for adults. If you want as an adult to start your social skill journey, focus on those two things.
Better at accepting no.
Yes.
Which, yes, nobody likes no. I mean, like you said, why would I ask for something if I expected to hear no? Of course not.
Yeah.
But sometimes no is in our best interest. And again, when we're talking with another adult, we ask somebody a question. Yes is a possible answer. No is a possible answer. And maybe is a possible answer. So whenever we ask a question, we have to remember those are three possible answers that might be coming back at us. And we need to get better at accepting any of those three, right? And what I think I see too in terms of accepting feedback, a lot of times in businesses, and I work with business people, they'll go through an evaluation, right? And that's normal. That's a normal part of working. It's a normal part of being a student. And honestly, it was a little strange when I got out of school and work just started and it just kept stretching out. And finally, I asked my boss, Daniel, I said, I need an evaluation or something. I'm so used to like this grading cycle, right?
Like, I'm doing.
How am I doing? What's, how is it? And he's like, oh, okay, sure, I'll evaluate you. And, but, our boss may give us 12 things that were just spot on. Like, you're so great. You're doing this. We really appreciate this. You're such an addition to the team. Robyn, I want you to take a look at this one area. And then what do we do?
Our back is up. It ruins for us if you don't know how to accept feedback. It ruins all the 12 fantastic things.
12 things melt away, and all we think about
is that one thing. And how dare he? I do this, and all he can think about is this one thing. And what about everybody else? Who is doing that? That is what we.
That's what we do.
That's what we do.
Right. But so again, when I think about Daniel, what a wonderful human being I was blessed with having him as a boss. He would have nothing but my best in mind to share that and to encourage me and to help me get even better. I mean, it was literally my first professional job. I'm sure I had things to learn, probably things that he didn't mention because he probably sensed I might have been a little sensitive about that. But I was very, very blessed. Very, very blessed. And I think it's probably one of the biggest things a person can get is healthy parents. Because they always gave me feedback. They always gave it in a kind and loving way. But they did not skip those opportunities. If I did something squirrely, and I'm sure there were more than a few times, then in a nice private way, they would take me aside later and they say, hey, kiddo, let's talk about what happened when Sally gave you the birthday present. I should have probably told you how to do this. And you said, oh, I already have one of these. It would have been better to just say, thank you so much, Sally, and I appreciate that. And then later we will take you to exchange that for something else. But they always let me know the small things that I did wrong and let me know, I love you, you're wonderful, and let's just work on that, right? And that is a blessing. And I know that, again, parenting to me is one of the most difficult, challenging jobs, exhausting jobs on the whole face of this earth. It is. And it is the most important because these children are minds and brains and hearts, and they're responsible for taking our world to a better place. And they can't do that if they can't communicate properly with each other, and they can't do that if they can't cultivate peace and kindness and professionalism, but forthrightness, right? Because our world does need feedback. They're going to work in a place that they need to give feedback to a coworker or a subordinate. And we want them to be able to do that in the right way, right?
One of the things that I do, I like the fact that you said that they are also going to be need to be able to give feedback, because one of the things that I do in groups at project class when I'm talking to kids about how to accept feedback in a group situation, I say, hey, listen, I want you to, give some feedback to this person in the group. You are in class with this person. Give this person some feedback about his or her behavior in the classroom. And then we talk about how feedback is not just being mean. It's not it. The feedback is meant to help you, right? And so that person is supposed to use it to improve. So when they practice giving feedback in the right way, that helps them to accept feedback. And also about feedback, I like to highlight the difference between feedback and an instruction, right? So if your parents give you feedback about your behavior, they say, hey, consider this, Robyn. What would have happened if you had done that? Maybe, you start thinking about what is going on. Now, they're not saying, Robyn, you must say the next times, they're not saying do this. They're saying, hey, you use your brain to see how that would benefit you. And that's what feedback is for. Like your boss. He says, hey, maybe you do this. It would be easier for you. You could get your work done more efficiently if you do this way. Now, of course, you could choose to continue to do it as you've always done. And you could see where that gets you too. So that is what feedback is. And I think it gets those wheels, just, what do you call it? Wheels, cogs turning. Yeah, get some
creative juices flowing too. But really thinking it through for yourself.
It helps them make good decisions. It's all a part. So feedback is important. And then accepting it. So I love to, it is funny when they do. Sometimes I do it for my own amusement. Hey, give them some feedback. And whatever they come up with, sometimes it's like really good feedback. And then sometimes it can start an argument, but it's good practice.
Well, that's true. One thing I enjoyed doing working with families was having the children lead a family conference, right? And so the parents had to sit and listen, right, and receive feedback. And the child then had to be the chore checker, right, and go around and see, did mom do the laundry, right? And everybody written down their chores for the week. But then the child got the sense of it's kind of stressful to be the parent, right? And then what if you have to give your sibling feedback? And of course, they're older than you and they want to wallop you on the head, right? But you're the boss of them that week. It's really good to do that role reversal with them too, because one day they may be the boss of people that are much older than them or much more alpha than them. But they still have to do their job and give feedback and take responsibility for that. And so consider that too, I think, in families is letting everybody take a role. I like that. I didn't know that y'all did that to let the kids, because that really would help them kind of be in the teacher's position for a minute to see like, oh, okay, this is kind of hard.
And the teacher's position, the same thing. Like sometimes we go through scenarios. They've had a problem in school. Oh, you were suspended because you didn't follow instructions. What is it that your teacher asked you to do? She asked me to take out my paper, but I was looking at my paper and I was going to do it. And then we go through that. Okay, well, let's pretend like I'm the teacher. I'm you and you're the teacher. And what are you going to do when I don't follow your instructions? And you have something to do. And what you said about role reversal and just getting them to think about, hey, this is what this looked like. Like, what can I do in this situation? And they understand. Like, they understand that, oh, I should have followed the instruction. It would have made it easier for me and everybody. I wouldn't have had to, have this consequence if I had just, like we say, just do it right away.
Do it right away. Okay, so break them down for us. Do tell us if you can.
Ooh. Yes, I can.
Because that's one.
Which one do you want me to break down?
I want all of them. I want to hear about all of them.
Okay, so what I like is the simplicity of it, right? And I'm going to tell you that this works because I've been a part of Houston Achievement Place for 35 years. So I use these same social skills with my biological children. It doesn't need to change, right? So following instructions, you look, you nod your head, say, okay, and you do it right away, right? And then I like to, with the kids that I work with, I like to take it a step further. And I say, okay, which one of those things do you think is the most important? The looking, the saying okay, or the doing it right away? And they know. They say, what do you think is most important, Robyn? The doing it right away. And we just go through that and we talk about it. And we do the different scenarios. If your mom says to you, hey, you're playing a video game, and she says, I need you to, put the dishes in the dishwasher, and you look at her and you say, okay, and you keep playing the video game, have you followed the instruction? No, I haven't. If you do it when you want to do it, are you following the instruction? We talk about why it's important, and not why it's important for your mom that you put those dishes in the dishwasher, but why it's important for you. What are the consequences if you don't? What are the consequences if you do? And just again, to get those wheels turning in their heads, right? It's not about you're going to follow your teacher's instruction because it's going to make it easier for her. You're going to follow your teacher's instruction because if you do what you're supposed to do right away, you may have more time to do something that you want to do later on, right? And that resonates more with children, and it also resonates more with adults when we know what's in it for us, right? So that's following instructions. Paying attention is, and I like to do with the kids, of course, I like to stop. What you doing? Look at the person talking and listen. So it's stop, look, and listen, right?
Okay.
And we talk about that. Like you're paying attention to somebody, you're stopping. When you're paying attention, you stop, you look at them, and you listen to what they're saying. And how I like to demonstrate how important that is to kids, and they don't know. I hope they're not watching this, because then they'll know my secret.
Know your secret.
So they'll know my secret. So I'll say, listen, tell me what you did this weekend. And kids are so happy to talk about themselves, as we all are, right? And so they'll start telling me that they went to soccer, or they, what they had for breakfast or whatever. And then I get up and I start looking through cabinets, or I'm looking in a bag. Like I'm just, I'm looking, and they're so confused. Like I'm talking to her, but she's not looking at me. She doesn't seem like she's listening. And then after a while, they'll stop, and I say, well, keep going, right? And then they'll like stutter and sputter, and then I sit down and I say, well, how did that feel? Like, you didn't feel like I was interested in what you were saying, and they agree, right? And then we talk about how if you're not looking and listening, if you're doing something when your teacher is talking, if you're talking to your classmate and she's talking, then she doesn't feel like you're paying attention to her. She may feel like you're not interested. Same with your parent. And so that's that one. Following instructions, paying attention, asking permission. We talk about how you have to look at the person, ask what you want in a nice way, and then you wait for the answer. The key to asking permission is you wait for the answer. And like, as you said earlier, you have to know that the answer could be yes, no, or maybe. And you have to be prepared for any of that. So yeah, which leads us.
Well, and I guess in adults, that one is about boundaries too, right?
Yes.
Asking permission, right? So like you said, first of all, that you're asking the person.
Yes.
You're respecting that.
Yes.
I'm crossing over into your area, whatever that is. And to do that, whether I need to get something out of your purse, or I want something out of your purse, or I want to take you on a date, that I'm asking permission to do that and waiting for your answer. Right.
And don't we, well, not me personally, right? But don't adults in general sometimes get in trouble in their relationships because they don't ask permission? They take, I took your car. Oh, well, I needed that. Oh, I ate your leftovers from the restaurant, well, I was going to eat that for lunch. You know, like just little stuff.
My parents are coming over tomorrow night for dinner.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, like maybe ask and wait for the answer. Well, I thought it would be okay. No. And doesn't it cause problems, right?
well, it just feels disrespectful.
Yeah, it feels disrespectful, right?
I'm crossing over your boundaries and I'm not really asking. And then I'm just kind of doing a cleanup act on the other end of that, right?
Right. And the same way you need to ask permission in the second grade. You need to ask permission when you've been in a 30-year marriage. I mean, it's the same 3 steps.
Yep. Okay, remind us what they are again.
You are to look, ask the question nicely, and wait for the answer, right? And the ask the question nicely is also very important, right? Well, are you gonna eat these leftovers? You always leave these leftovers in the refrigerator and you never eat them. Can I just have it? You know, that is not a nice way to ask, right? And practice that. Practice being nice just to one another in general in your interactions with people. So those are the 3 steps. And then asking permission. And the next one is accepting no.
Not popular, not popular.
So if you ask for leftovers and you already anticipate that's my lunch, and somebody says to you, no, you can't have it. So immediately, like me, I'm thinking about not myself maybe, but somebody who may
struggle
in this area. I may think, you're not going to eat that. You're just telling me no because you are being difficult. Right? I don't know. Spiteful, difficult. Yeah, and then you just wait. But but they're same thing. It's really simple. You look at the person. You listen without talking or arguing, and then you move on. Right? How simple is that? It's simple. It's not easy.
No.
It's simple, but it's not easy. So you just listen. You don't make any excuses. You don't say why you should say yes, but no. You just move on. And move on means, for adults and children, it means going back to what you were doing. Right? So if you were making a sandwich and you asked for something and you were told no, go back to making your sandwich.
Just keep moving.
Just keep it moving, right? And that is in the classroom. That's for children. That's for adults. And that's what you're supposed to do.
That's a tough one. I know for a lot of us, that's a tough one. I want to shed some light from an adult perspective, too, on something that's very interesting that comes to therapy, which is a person who often says yes, but they really don't want the person to have that. They really wanted to say no, but they have spent a lifetime saying, sure, that's fine, whatever. I don't care, wherever you want to eat. But they really wanted sushi. They really wanted to do this. They really wanted to have that. They didn't want to share their leftovers. Okay, so I also want to share with people too that it's okay to say no. It's okay to answer another person who's asking you, even if they're really forceful or they're really abrupt or they're just really intense, to say, I really thank you for asking me. That was really nice. But I really am planning on eating those for lunch today. But how about I help you make a sandwich? Something like that. Because I don't think people realize until they end up in therapy, like that impacts you. Because you're telling yourself no, and you're valuing this other person over yourself. Yeah, go ahead.
And you're making some concessions and you don't want to. And it builds up resentment actually towards the person that you're saying yes to, right?
They have no idea.
Yeah, they have no idea because they're getting what they want.
Right.
Yeah, because they're happy because they got their yes.
And legitimately they asked you,
Mm-hmm.
and you said yes. And so why should they feel any way, right? They asked appropriately. So it's very important also to really listen to yourself and let your yes be yes and let your no be no, and know that that's okay.
And when we start with kids and we have these conversations with them about people can tell you no, and when you know that people can tell you no and you don't have this big reaction to the no because it's just yes, no, maybe. It's not emotional. It's not the end of the world. Then you understand that when you tell people no, it doesn't have to be the end of the world. It doesn't have that impact because it's just something that happens. People say yes, no, or maybe. Yeah. And then also when you say, oh, no, you can also move on. You don't have to do anything else. And when you move on, they have to move on too.
Good point. Good point. Because I think there's a lot of inappropriate guilt about saying no.
Yeah.
But saying no is just saying no. It's just like saying
no.
yes.
Yeah. It's yes, no, or maybe. And once we practice it, everything practice, and we understand, and the emotion is taken out of these little things that people, these 3-step things that people do all day, every day, 360 days a year. See, you didn't get that.
360.
Okay, 300. Yeah. Then it's.
I can accept feedback.
No, I'm just teasing you. You know that I am. Okay, so the no, and then of course, then the accepting feedback, which we talked a little bit about. Do you accept feedback in a very similar way? Because accepting no and accepting feedback, they are the hardest. And accept feedback, you look at the person, you listen without talking or arguing, making any excuses, defending yourself. You don't do anything. And then you just use it to improve, right? That's it. You don't have to make a commitment to do anything. You can reflect on it. And the thing about feedback is, like we talked about, it's different from an instruction. You can say, that was pretty valid. I'm going to use some of that. But I think I'm okay with this. You use it for yourself. That's what feedback is for. And I'm going to give you an example. You know, I have a daughter who will be 17 in a week. And this was very recent. She had a lock-in with her choir. And they were doing a chili thing. And she didn't want chili. So she and her friend wanted to go to Panda Express. And they wanted to get a dinner. And they were going to have the dinner when everybody else was eating chili. And so I said, hey, like your parents, I said, hey, do you think you want to do that? Because everybody else is going to eat chili. And if you eat Panda Express, like, is it going to be like the community, the sense of community that they're trying to build? And we had this whole conversation and she thought about it. She says, yeah, I'm going to get the Panda Express. But she considered the feedback that I gave her, and she was like, "No, that's not really useful to me." And then, of course, I did follow up with her, and I said, "Well, hey, how did it feel when everybody else was eating the chili and your friend were eating the Panda Express?" She says, "I felt pretty good." That is my daughter, but I'm just like your parents. I just, try to tell her all of this stuff, right? And also as parents, you do that because maybe your feedback doesn't have an impact at the moment, right? Mm-hmm. But when they grow, when they're in a different situation, it comes back.
They may remember.
Wow.
What did my wise sage mother tell
me about this? And then they may use that feedback at another time. But it's important to provide the feedback.
It's very true. Parents play such a critical role in the child's success or their failures. You know, they really do. But I'll tell you this as a therapist, because I am, for a lot of people, a corrective parent, right? A healthy mom that they can come to, tell all the stuff to, and she can say, okay, let's think about that, right? Let's think about how we could do that a different way, or what motivated you to do it that way, right? And then they will tell me, oftentimes, I got into this other situation and I could hear you over here. She said, and then I could shove you over there. No. They're supposed to do exactly what I said. But they do. We have those tapes of our parents. They're fortunately and sometimes unfortunately embedded in our psyche, right? And so they can draw on that at a later time when she needs to. And I know that whether you like it or not, you are reparenting these kiddos in your elementary schools too. That they can come to school. I hear it all the time, you know. I would ask people, who were the sort of foster moms in your life? And they say, oh, it was a teacher. Oh, it was a pastor. Oh, it was the next door neighbor lady, you know. We would go to her house and she would always have something to eat and something to drink and a kind word. And you are one of those people I know in these little kiddos' lives too, because I'm quite sure that some of them really go home to very challenging scenarios, you know. And but they can come to school, and even though you're giving them feedback, even though you're sent there to correct their negative behaviors and teach them some new skills and how to manage all of that better, I know that they can hear it well because of who you are.
Well, and I'm going to say we talk about this very often, like the kids that we see, you think that they would perceive it as negative, like being pulled from group, going to project. They don't typically see it that way. Some do, but most are like so eager to go, so eager to participate. Kids that you no longer see, they're like, when are you gonna get me? Like, why don't you see me anymore? And then this was the cutest thing. There was a little second grader. I'm walking through the hall, and she says, what? I said, well, how are you doing? She says, I'm not doing so good. I'm having some problems. I'm like, you are not having any problems. You are doing good.
But I want to go back to project class.
But I want to go back to project class. Yes.
I can't take it anymore.
And you're so right, because I think that maybe as a society, it is our job to teach social skills, right? And the kids that sometimes we see, unfortunately, they don't get it at home, right? And so they come to school and they don't have those social skills. It's causing them problems. Their teachers have a big group of kids that they are teaching to, and they have other responsibilities too. So project class, to me, I think it serves, it fills a gap, right? Because we take them, we talk to them about these things that they need to know. And I feel like you said, that tape is going to play in their head. They're going to know. They know this stuff. They know they can follow instructions. They know how to accept no. And because like sometimes they don't. And so once we teach them, we will know that they know. Now they make their own choices, but they have the information, and I feel good about giving them the information.
I know with parents, especially if they themselves struggle with their social skills or they were not parented well, they really don't have that patience or that calm in the storm of their child's anger or sadness or meltdown, right? And so it is very key.
So and I'm glad you have this here, Robyn. One of the things that I like to use is this book. We have a lot of books, but my favorite one is Michael Gets Mad. And this is a story about a little boy who gets mad, just like it says. It's a very simple story. It gets straight to the point. It has like tools, simple tools for Michael when he gets mad. And I like to tell teachers, when Michael gets mad, you cannot. It's as simple as that. Your role when Michael is upset, in calming him down, your role is to stay calm. So it's just good, and it's on our website.
What are those? Talk about COBRA. Maybe open up to that page.
Okay, I will. Oh, so COBRA is, and if you're familiar with, and I know you are, I know that you are, with calming down techniques. Calming down, you calm down, you count, and you breathe. So COBRA is counting, breathing, and acting calm, right? So we teach students, and Michael Gets Mad. Let me see if I can open up to the page. I'm not sure what page it is. Michael has a dog, and I just, when I open the page, look how vibrant. I mean, it's just a nice little book, and I like it. Okay, so when Michael gets mad, he is supposed to count, breathe, and act calm. And you see the transformation. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yeah, you can see his bright.
He starts from one, and if he continues to count, he's not going to be able to maintain that level of energy, right? And so if he wants to calm down, and that is what he's supposed to do so he can make good decisions, right? Mm-hmm. Then he's going to count, and he's going to breathe, and then he's going to act calm, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when he acts calm, guess what happens? He can what? You finish it. When he acts calm, he can
make better decisions.
When he acts calm, he can
follow instructions.
When he acts calm, he can. All of that stuff. He can be calm.
Well, and you know, there's a lot of science behind that too. Of course, it's not in the book.
Yeah.
But about calming our vasovagal nerve, right, through breathing, and just again, the way I put it to clients is just change the channel, right?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, just like your tumbleweed example, but instead of just continuing to let that thought grow and think about all the other things and the things, I'm just gonna change the channel. I'm gonna just focus on my breathing. I'm just gonna get quiet. And I may even turn on some calming music. That really changes the mood around me, right? And then I'm ready to relax and think again. And those negative thoughts will come in again, right? And start to stir me up again. But I say, no, you know what? I've been here thinking these thoughts for 15 more minutes. I'm not doing it. I'm going to change the channel and go back to my breathing and just recenter myself. And then I can feel a lot better. But that's a cycle. And you do have to practice that.
You have to practice.
You have to practice it. But it can really, really totally change where you're at in your mind.
And I'm glad that you mentioned the practice, right? Because like we teach social skills, and it is not as simple as I'm going to tell you these 3 steps. You know it. It's done. You have to practice it, just like you practice if you were a golfer and you spend all the time on the court? On the course, right? On the greens. So you want to be out there because you want to get better at it. If you want to get better at calming yourself down, if you want to get better at accepting no, if you want to get better at any of these social skills, you have to put the time in. You have to practice, right? And then you get better.
And every time it gets better.
Every time it gets better.
Easier.
Right? Yeah.
Thank you again, Sabrina, so much for coming. I just want to encourage you all this week too. You know, as we were talking about all of these social skills, and they're each very important. And again, if we don't address them when we're young, or our parents didn't teach us these things, it's okay. They're skills, and you can learn them even now as an adult, okay? So I want you to just take a minute. I want you to think about yourself. I want you to just dial into myself and notice, if you can, maybe one of the social skills that Sabrina brought up that really kind of resonated with you. You could see like, yeah, I wasn't really following instructions in that situation at work. Or, you know, my spouse has been trying to give me some feedback. They've tried it in a nice way. They've tried it in a fussy way. They've tried and tried. And I think I really am not accepting feedback well. Whatever it is that really kind of pinged you today, I want you this week, and I challenge you to take that social skill, just one, and I want you to think about it all week long, and I want you to try 3 different times this week to work on that social skill in a different way, to really notice what your gut instinct tells you to do, but then I want you to think about, okay, what else could I do? What else could I try that might be received a little bit better on the other end? Okay? Eleanor Roosevelt had a wonderful quote, and it is this: "It's not enough to talk about peace. We must believe it." One must not only believe in peace, though. One must work at it. I just challenge you with that this week. Thank you again for joining us today, and we hope to see you next time. And don't forget to like and subscribe our page, Between Two Asses. We'll see you next time.